Welcome to the Draft Stack with Kyle Scarlett. I'm here with Jacob and Jordan. What's going on, guys?
Not
What up,
much.
guys?
Today we're going to talk top 10 guards in this 2025 NBA draft class. Might be a few hot takes in here, uh, but we're going to cover all the bases here and give you some good insight on some of these prospects, some of these guards who I think are pretty dynamic. Jacob, you want to kind of start us off?
Yeah, so the first guard that's going to be off the board is probably the guard everyone knows, Dylan Harper. I don't think that
Who?
there is sorry, Jordan is a VJ guy, and although I do love VJ, there's no other guard in this class like Harper that probably has the poise to be a lead ball handler or a lead guard on a competing team. He's just screams primary ball handler for me. When you look at his game, he just has advanced IQ, advanced footwork. Although he's not the most athletic guy, I think he does a really good job at using his body, leveraging his 6'6" frame, which is pretty big for a guard, to like bump guys and create separation. He draws foul at a really high rate. But one thing that I love about Harper is he is probably one of the best finishing prospects for a guard we have ever seen, and
Mhm.
probably just for a prospect in general. Like these numbers are just like off the chart. Like I think he was 67% at the rim this year.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah, that's like a big man.
that is literally a big man, like field goal percentage.
It's like Dwight
But
Powell numbers.
Dwight Powell. He's also, I think, like I said, he's not the greatest athlete in the world in my eyes, but he does know how to use his body, and he also just
Mhm.
is so smart. Like if you watch him on the defensive end, I feel like he's always in the right spot, and he does a great job at making decisions, like timing when he's going to try to pick a pocket or something. But yeah, Harper's an easy eval for me. He's the second best guy in this class. He's probably in a tier of his own for me, right under that flag tier. If we're talking other classes, he probably goes number one last year. I think he
Oh yeah,
goes
for
number
sure.
one. I think he goes number one in 2020 also over Edwards. And then you can really debate if he goes number one in 2022 with Paulo, Chet, and Jabari.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, this is just one of the best guard prospects we have seen in a while. I think he's leaps and head bounds ahead of Scoot.
So I have been the VJ guy all year. Um, this week I finally moved VJ tier down. So I do think that Harper he is in a tier of his own. So I know that you guys are happy about that because you guys have been trying to get me to do that all year. Um, Looking at I'm still nervous about his shot, um, but I just have gotten to the point where uh, the red flags for VJ are a little bit more than the red flags for Harper,
Hmm.
um, and uh, I still think there's a world where VJ is better than Harper in the league,
Hmm.
but I think that if we're talking about more likely outcomes, I think that it's more likely that Harper will be better in the league. I think he's more likely than anybody else to be the second best player in this class. Um, the worries that I have, so I've got, he was 33% from three on 150 attempts. That's a little worrying. It's also very in line with his dad's numbers, which is interesting if you are someone who thinks that touch is genetic, like with the Currys. So that's an interesting thing to look at. I don't know that I agree that touch is genetic because my dad can shoot and I can't. So um, I'm just going to go with that. But he, on the bright side, he was 75% from the free throw line on a ton of attempts, and he draws fouls. So I think that there is a pretty good likelihood that he is going to be able to at least shoot enough at the next level. I kind of worry about him being your point guard. Um, and that's where my biggest red flag with Harper is. Um, Now, to be fair, he was playing with just Ace Bailey and everybody else was like a Make-A-Wish kid on that Rutgers team. So the assist numbers are bad, but even the vision looks bad. And I don't know how much of that vision is um, I see you and you don't deserve to get the ball, or I didn't see you. And that's where I think that's the widest variety. Because like if he can really pass, then you're talking about a point guard who can get to the rim. Like he's very similar to James Harden, but I think he actually tries a little bit more on defense than Harden does. Because Harden's a good defender when he wants to be. And so it's just he like never wants to be. So I like Harper as a prospect. I think that he's very clearly the number 2. Even though I'm probably lower on him than consensus, he's still number 2 on my board. So it's just like the amount of can't miss with him, I think, is lower than a lot of people think.
And the funny thing is, and I've said this to you guys privately, I've had Dylan and VJ 1A and 1B personally. I've given VJ the edge simply because of defense, and we'll get to him. But I would say from the scoring perspective, Dylan just has there's like a gap in the ability of getting where he wants to go, scoring wise. I think his footwork is something that doesn't get talked about as often. I just think
impeccable.
He really has really good work. I'm intrigued to see what he uses his size for defensively, and maybe it's a little bit different NBA wise than it was on a Rutgers team that just really had kind of a lot of defensive holes. So I'm wondering what that looks like. I'm also wondering how he's going to rely a little bit less on pull-ups. He did have a high usage rate. Obviously, with that team, you're going to. But to me, you were saying James Harden, but I was thinking, and this is maybe just an instinctive thing, playmaking-wise, can he have a fraction of what LaMelo has playmaking-wise? That's
so my actual comp for him is actually more of a 2 guard. Because my actual comp for him right now is RJ Barrett. And so because if the jump shot does not come along, I think he's closer to RJ Barrett than he is to, an actual point guard. And so, which is still a very valuable player. I'm very high on RJ Barrett. I know that like some people think that he's absolute trash. Like I really like RJ Barrett, so I'm not meaning that as a diss. I do think that Barrett is probably more of an explosive, like power dunker, and he's more of a finesse finisher.
100%.
But I don't like comping people because like the obvious comp that people have been using all year is SGA. I don't like doing.
I don't like that either.
Well, I also don't like choosing like SGA at this point is a top 100 player all time, or at least really close to that. I don't like doing that for my comps. I have done it for Cooper Flag, but like he's that good of a prospect. And Victor Wembanyama, I think, are the only 2 people that I've ever used a top 100 player as their comp. So, and
SGA is also just so much longer than Dylan Harper is, and he just uses.
He's also in better shape, in my opinion.
100%. Like he's more agile, I think. Also, even though, like Kyle said, he has amazing footwork, he's probably one of the best guards we've seen play off of 2 feet in a while now.
SGA can contort his body in a different way than Harper can.
Better body control is what you're kind of alluding to here.
It's also probably because he is slimmer and longer. Like he's more wiry and he knows how to control it better.
He has a lot of bend. He's very flexible, and I don't think that people realize that's why he's so good at getting to the rim is because of how much he can bend his spine and his hips.
Yeah, I feel like Harper is kind of like thicker, like as a frame.
Yeah, he's more power.
Yeah. I saw this comp a while ago. I saw Malcolm Brogdon plus. I thought that was pretty interesting for him. Defensively, I don't really see it because I think Brogdon at Virginia was probably one of the best point of attack prospects we've seen in a while, and he's just such a smart defender. On the offensive side, I do see it to an extent. I think Brogdon's shooting was somewhat no one didn't really see that coming.
Better, yeah.
It was much better when he came to the league. But also to your point of him not being a great Harper not being a great on-ball shooter right now, guard development is really tough, and something that Harper is really good at right now is off-ball shooting. He was a really good catch-and-shoot shooter last year, and he was pretty smart when he was relocating off-ball screens and whatnot. So I do think that's a skill that's going to be translatable, while the other shooting, like the on-ball shooting, the pull-ups, the step-backs, that stuff will later develop.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that. To me, you guys already know where I'm going. if he can be a plus defender team wise, then that to me is what will separate him even further. Just being able
For
to
sure.
use his size at his position, I do think he'll likely, if he's not playing point guard, he'll likely see some of the Vassell role. Just as you mentioned, the shooting, that's kind of what Vassell is used as, is somebody who can get off ball, slippery off screens, things of that nature, trying to just get shots off. So it'd be interesting to see if that's kind of what his role is, because they already have two guys who need the ball in their hands as point guards. So it'll be interesting to see if that's how they interact as far as being able to use those three guys together. So who do we have next here? Who's next on y'all's list? Jacob?
VJ Edgecombe is the
Yeah,
next.
it's VJ. Yeah.
So I'll start with VJ.
Yeah, sure.
Love him as a prospect. He is absolutely athletic. He is absolutely nuts. He can do a whole lot of stuff with transition. He's an incredible transition guy. I do think that sometimes he jumps before he has a plan on offense. And if that can get coached out of him, I think he's going to be just an absolute monster in transition. I also think that his shooting is fine. I really, he's 34% on 153 threes. That's actually decent for somebody. And he shot 78% on 142 free throws. Like, he is to me, I think he's going to be a good shooter. I'm not really worried about the jump shot. I'm more worried about his non-dunking finishing than his jumper. And so I think he's an incredible dunker. Like, oh my word. He loves to put people on posters. He's fun. But when he doesn't have, he's not very good at going around people. If he can't go through them, he doesn't have very good around them. And so hopefully that can get fixed. As far as defense, I think he's a very good point of attack defensive prospect. However, I think we've also been spoiled recently with some of those point of attack defender prospects. Like, I don't think he's going to be Amin Thompson. I don't think he's going to be even Bilal Coulibaly. I don't think he's going to be, Asor, or even the guy at Phoenix, Dunn.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I still think he's going to be a positive there. There's a reason that he's getting Victor Oladipo. I'm sorry, that's my northern Nigerian coming out. Sorry, Oladipo. Comps is that he is he's a lot more. He's a lot better of an offensive guy than a defensive guy, I think, at his peak. But he's still going to be a very, very solid defender. And so I actually think that there are less weaknesses, because everyone is pointing to the jump shot as the big swing skill, big weakness. I actually think most of the metrics, it looks like he's going to shoot. So I don't think that the shooting is the problem. I think it is actually some of the other things that we tend to take for granted with this type of prospect that are more of the red flags.
What do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Jordan said for the most part. Defensively, I think he's gonna be a better defensive player, honestly. I think that what we saw from him last year in college is that he's a defensive playmaker. He averaged 2.7 stocks a game last year. Like, this is a guy that will jump down lanes, even though during the combine you would have liked to see him be a little bit longer. I think he was barely 6'7" in length, and he's 6'4" without shoes. So you would have liked to see that to be a little bit longer so he can get out there and just intercept passes a little bit better. But I think this guy moves his feet extremely well. Like Jordan said, he is an exceptional athlete, and that will probably fare very well for him, especially when he is going to have to switch in many situations. Offensively,
and he's a functional athlete.
He's very functional. Yeah, he knows how to use his body. He is a little bit undisciplined at times. He will try that's a huge issue. Like, going for the block when he shouldn't have to, falling for pump fakes. He's probably a secondary, tertiary guy on the offensive end. He's probably more of an off-ball connective piece, a guy that's going to slash and get like off-ball cuts, like easy spots at the rim. So I'm just a big fan of VJ because like if you're a guy that's that athletic, I feel like you will find your way in the NBA some way or another.
Yeah. And I think I agree with the defensive side. I think that's why I had him 1B with Harper. I think his ability to the wingspan is a big impressive thing for me. I just think at his height. And he's drawn some really interesting comps that I'm not going to justify on here. I'm not going to say them.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But I do think he's shown the ability to be an elite two-way guy. Do I think the offense?
For those of you wondering who it is, it's the guy with the worst statue in the NBA.
Yeah, and I'm not touching that with a 10-foot.
Yeah, he does not need that pressure.
And that is a lot of pressure. But I do think if there was somebody to understudy, like how to like play the passing lanes, how to use your body to stay in front of your man, stuff of that nature, that is a great person to learn from. But I do think it just letting him come into his own game and kind of be his own person, defensively, offensively. I don't even want to put that on him either, because that's also been the comp. I just think it's to be seen. Not to mention some of what, and just to mention it since it's kind of out there, Wade was a much better ball handler at this age.
Significantly better.
Yeah, the ball handling is a red flag for VJ, in my opinion. I don't think that he's a sound ball handler at all at this moment. It's pretty loose and just not really controlled.
Right, and so the tightness and granted, we're talking about a Hall of Famer here, so I'm not measuring them, but I'm saying if he was to say, hey, whose game should I kind of pattern aspects of? Because I have my own game, but what aspects could I take from this particular player and add to my repertoire? That now, granted, he is. Shooting guards have gotten so much bigger now, so it's really difficult to kind of go at players, at least from the post up and some of that. You have to have real strength to kind of do that. I do think he shoots free throws really well, so that's a big plus if you have a guard that can shoot free throws. And that's not a given these days, people. Like there are some guards who struggle at the line. So if he can continue to be really proficient at free throw shooting, his pull-up shooting is one of those things that I think that's linked with the handling. If you can't create off the handle, you're not going to be able to make the pull-up. So I just think he has to raise that a little bit. But to me, I don't think there's another guard I would put 1B or third right afterward as far as a prospect, just because of what he does defensively. And then the athleticism, as you guys have mentioned, is just unreal. I do think he'll need to think about processing the jumps more. And granted, there's something to be said for that, right? Like being able to jump and process what you want to do next in a split second is a skill set that's takes a little bit of learning curve. So
it's a mind muscle connection,
right? So if he's able to connect those two things, that could help with body control. It can help with finishes at the rim. I think Jordan, you mentioned just not sure about him not dunking the ball and maybe laying it up. A lot of that is just figuring out how to use your body and how to manipulate the space you have as far as a vertical leaper. So lost Jordan there for a second. But yeah, I think he's a really tough guard.
He plays with that like confidence and motor and flair that you look for when you are trying to get a guard. Like he just like plays the game at like full speed, full throttle, like will go at you, no fear whatsoever. And like that's just that says a lot about him as not only a player but as a person.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Some people have him as a wing. I don't. Not sure why.
Especially on offense, I think he's more of a guard.
Agreed.
Defensively, I could see him being on the wing side of things, guarding wings, just because I feel like he can, and he'll be able to check them at a high enough rate too. Offensively, absolutely not. He's not going to be able to have the like perimeter ball handling abilities to play the wing right away.
At least not at this moment, right? Right.
Definitely not.
So I think we have Fears next, correct?
Yeah. So I think we probably need to make it clear to people that Khan is going to be a wing in our list. So that's one thing. And then also, I think for me at least, so I view Trey as more of a wing, so he's lower on this list, even though I have him as a higher prospect. And so I think we probably should have just moved Trey over to the wing list.
Probably.
And that would have made it easier. But so for anyone freaking out that we're doing Fears over Trey and over Khan, that's why. So
yeah, well, and that's a separate line.
Yes. Yes.
So Fears. Oh no, I can start off with Fears here. I do think, and I'm sure people are going to be so sick of hearing me say get stronger, but some of these guards have to get stronger. Just the league,
especially him.
The transition from college to the league. You learn that some of the guys you're playing against, you think might, I don't know if people realize, but some of these guys are not scrubs because you think they're scrubs. These are NBA basketball players. They're part of an elite amount of guys who get to play in the league. And so especially defensively, some of the ways these guys defend now, you've just got to get stronger to be able to deal with physicality. But I do think he uses his body well. If we're talking about body control, he's one of the most he's most gifted in the ability to use his body, especially at his size. Tends to show the ability to float. That floater is such a difficult shot to get going. I think he uses that pretty well. I do think his efficiency could be a little bit higher on threes. Just being able to spread the floor and stretch it and give himself driving lanes. Do think his assists, especially as a lead guard, if he's going to be a lead guard at some point, the assist to turnover ratio is going to need to be a little bit better. He's going to need to raise his ability to make reads and find guys vision wise. Yeah. And then finally, I just think in the open floor, he's shown the ability to finish at the rim. But I'm wondering about that explosiveness, especially when you need to just get a bucket strongly. Can he finish above the rim? So I think those are my things for him. I think he's really good. I think he has a smoothness to his game, especially for his age. He doesn't seem to be rushed. He tends to take his time and get where he wants to get to. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about Jeremiah Fears?
I worry, like all of my worries would be alleviated, like are kind of alleviated by the fact that he's the second youngest player in the draft. Like, so everything to me is about maturity and physically maturing. And so I don't think you're drafting him for this year. If you're expecting him to come, like, the Mavs couldn't have, if they were at 11, if they drafted Fears, that would not solve their point guard problems for this year. But I do think that he is very clearly, to me, he's got some very good indicators. I think that the 3-point shooting numbers, while it doesn't look great for the actual threes, he's an incredible free throw shooter. He's got touch everywhere else. I kind of believe that the 3-point shot is coming. However, the thing that I really do worry about, again, this goes back to the maturity, is he averaged 3.4 turnovers to only 4.1 assists. So that's something that I would watch on. But so I think that makes him more of like a combo guard, in my opinion, than an actual point guard, which is fine. I still think there's definitely a role for him in the league. But there's just a lot, to me. The maturity isn't there, but again, he's the second youngest player in the draft. So should the maturity be there is the other question. So. And also I'm probably a little bit of a hater because he's, OU and, the Longhorns, but, I
think my disagreement there is, I know he's 18, whatever. He's the second youngest player in this class. I don't think it's more about that, because I do think that he's shown at the college level enough that he can produce at a high level. especially as a ball handler, because he probably is the second best ball handler in the class behind Harper. I think he also does test Harper a little bit in that category. But my question is, what exactly is his role going to be in the NBA without having the ball in his hands? Like, is he going to be a guy that's constantly flying off ball screens, relocating to get open shots? And is he going to be able to knock down these like open, like spot up jumpers? Like, we didn't really see that a ton at Oklahoma. So that's probably my big question. But like you said, he is a prospect, and a team that needs to take a swing should probably take a swing on him. I feel like Brooklyn would be an unbelievable destination for him. I think that would be worth for his development. But like he's really like his size and just like obviously he's young, so he's not filled out. But size and frame, they're just like really not ideal for like switch heavy defenses or teams will need to play drop coverage with him on the floor. Like that's a problem for me because I think it just messes up the entire rotations. So like, is he best? Is he going to be a guy that's on a team and just chucking up shots, or is he going to learn to be kind of like a change of pace, like second man off the bench, where he's just running the offense and running the show?
Yeah, I think he could be an incredible sixth man. If you're going to get him as a sixth man, like he's going to be one of the best sixth man in the league. But the idea that he's going to be a star player is maybe there's a lot of red flags to him getting to star potential.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are way too high on that aspect of it because being a 6'2", 6'1" guard, it's never been harder in the NBA before. If you're not shooting or passing at a high level, which Jeremiah does not do either of right now, you're not going to be a star NBA guard.
Yeah.
Not at the moment. No. And so that's kind of where I was at with the assist, the vision. Can you make reads? Do you have the vision to organize guys? And Jordan, you talked about maturity. Some of the maturity with guards is being able to slow your teams down, right? To get them organized and settle them in. Can he do that with his play as far as playmaking is concerned and finding guys?
I actually think there's not a whole lot of playmaking worry to me because, like, I didn't watch every minute of OU, but to me, most of his turnovers to me were actually like physically he would get bumped, and I felt like that was more of the issue than him, doing terrible passes or losing his handle or anything like that. I thought it was like he's turning it over because of physicality, not because of inability to make plays. So I do think that there is definitely a path as his body fills out that those turnovers will cut down.
Which that goes back to my initial point. He has to get stronger.
Yeah, he's got to get stronger.
Has to get stronger. It has to be NBA body ready. Obviously, again, this is a prospect, so I'm not saying to rush anything. Total developmental patience here, but just like that's going to determine his effectiveness, even scoring the ball, right? Like him being able to continue to be smooth will require him to just add some strength and maybe put on maybe 5 to 10 more pounds. He doesn't have to be bulky, just a little bit more strength so that his body can take what it requires. I think, Jacob, you touched on it as well, the ability to just to deal with being a smaller guard, especially at the position he'll likely play. And unless you're a coach that has a specific kind of game plan or a specific lineup that you kind of run guards with, he likely is only going to be playing point guard. Like I just can't imagine that he'll play up to combo guard or 2-guard position, just because of his size at the particular moment. So it's to be seen. It's to be seen. So we have Trey Johnson next. Jake,
I love Trey Johnson. I love him. Like I have him 5th on my board. No, he should be 4th. He should be 4th. I have written down 5. He's 4. Yeah, that was a typo. He's 4. He's 4 on my board. Okay. He's. Oh no. Ace is over him. So yeah. So he's 5th. But still, he comes into Texas and he breaks the Kevin Durant scoring record his first game. Like the scoring chops are real. And I get that like people are judging him on the fact that he was forced to play point guard. He's not a point guard. That's fine. It's okay to not be a point guard. Like he's tall enough to not have to be a point guard. To me, he can really score. There was somebody who earlier this week had posted on Twitter that like he would be the fourth person ever in history to let me see if I can find that. It was like he'd only be the fourth person ever to be drafted. I sent it to a friend of mine with that few shots at the rim, but that many. Yeah. So he would be the fifth player in the Bart era since 2008 to be drafted in the first round with less than 100 attempts at the rim, but more than 200 attempts from mid-range and a free throw rate of less than 30%, which sounds terrible, except the other four are SGA, Jalen Williams, CJ McCollum, and Otto Porter. Like, that's pretty good company to be with. So, like, I'd take those other four, like, so, I really like him. I think also as his usage gets scaled down into actually getting to play off ball, I think his efficiency is going to go up, and he's super efficient. He shot 40% from three on 224 attempts, and he had 87% from the line. Like, the dude can shoot. So now you're going to like quit making him have to take, triple team threes. Like, I'm pretty excited about where he could go. So I really like Trey.
I mean, it's easy to love him just because he's such a polished scorer. Like, I don't think we've seen many prospects this young be this good of a scorer. Like, shot like being like a walking bucket or just like a microwave scorer gets tossed around a lot, especially for guys who are in the back end of the first round who displayed an ability to score at the college level, but not efficiently or like at that rate. But Trey Johnson has, and he is so young. So I really have confidence in him being an NBA level scorer and probably averaging at least 15 points a game at some point in his career. The questions are, what else is he going to do outside of that? Which is why my worst nightmare is the Charlotte Hornets get enamored with his game and he gets drafted to the depth hell of Charlotte, and he's kind of stuck in this NBA. It's a terrible fit. But yeah, I mean, he's not a great playmaker. I think that shot choice really does need to tighten up. But again, this is a guy that was being used a ton at Texas. So his shot choices weren't always going to be the best. He also tested so well at the combine. Like, he was probably the big winner at the combine this year.
Oh, yeah.
All everyone could talk about was how well he tested athletically. Someone mentioned, I forget who, during the star drill, he had like an all-time time, which is incredible. And then also, I think he just does have noticeable lapses in his defensive game at times. But you're not drafting him for his defense. You're drafting him to get you a bucket.
But I also think his defense is actually better than, like, Cam Thomas is the same archetype.
Oh, no, yeah.
He's a better defender. He's a better defender than, yeah.
Like when I say lapses, I mean, like, there's going to be a play like, oh, he was really sleeping on that play. Or he should have probably closed out a little bit harder on that. But those are little things that can get that fixed in time when you're playing in a faster NBA setting with more reps.
Agreed.
And I also think the same thing with his playmaking. Like, again, he's not a black hole, but he's just not a point guard. And that's fine. Yeah. It's fine to not be a point guard. It's not fine to be a black hole. And he's not a black hole, in my opinion.
I think his shot creation is something that I think I'm high on. Just his ability to get shots off. I do think he'll need to work on creating more separation to get those shots off NBA wise. I think his true shooting was close to 55%, and I could be terribly wrong about that. I think the stats say that that's probably close to where he was at true shooting wise or as a whole. Usage rate was pretty interesting at Texas. Funny enough, it wasn't over 30% from what I've read.
Yeah, it was 29 or 27. I have that one written down. I'm looking for the true shooting.
If he can, I think the thing is you're drafting him if he can remain between 36 and 39% shooting from three, then you take him, right? Like that's what you want out of here. There have
55.7 true shooting. Excellent, Kyle.
And so one of the things that I think I'm only a little bit concerned about, and Jacob and Jordan, you guys touched on some things that are just tweaks that can work in improving him. The league has made such a big deal, or at least pundits have made a big deal about guys being one-dimensional players, right? Like just not having the ability to impact on the other end. And you're not, listen, to me, as a disclaimer, I just don't think every prospect you draft is going to be a two-way guy. That's just not realistic. That's not,
Right.
Some guys' skill sets just don't fit that. Sometimes they don't have the body for it. So expecting every prospect, or at least dropping some prospects because of their inability to be a two-way player at this moment, especially if they haven't played in the league before, to me is a weird indictment. Now, to me, if you can get a bucket, and that's your natural ability, and that's something that Trey has, to me, I've said this before, it is so much easier to tell a guy, hey, look, you're 6'6", you have a decent wingspan, I just need your lateral quickness to get up. Like, let's work on some drills here. Than it is to tell a guy, go get me 3. I've said this before. He has the ability to create shots and get shots. And it is really difficult to teach prospects. And we've seen it before where guys were high, they were within the lottery, and then their scoring just was such a big problem on the floor. They could defend, but if they are going to be sagged off, it's playing 5-on-4 on the other end of the court. So that's something you don't have to worry about with him. I think you mentioned, Jacob, you mentioned his efficiency, just doing it at this point. I think he'll be 20 in a few months. So there's just a lot of upside here. And then to me, if he's going to be a movement shooter, which I think some of that is what a team is going to draft him for, just being able to, cut off screens. His conditioning is going to be, I think, will need to be high, especially if he's going to be that kind of player for whatever team drafts him. Just being able to run and move without the ball. And I don't think he'll have to do it all the time, because I think wherever he ends up drafted, we'll figure out what that scheme looks like for him. But as he gets used to what it takes to be in NBA condition, that ability to move without the ball and get shots off, I'm intrigued to see what he does here. I think we have Casp next. Casper is Jacquinus.
Yeah.
Sure.
Probably I would love to start here because you guys know this. I am not somebody who is super down on prospects. I'm just not impressed with him. Do think he's a good player as far as what he's there for. My biggest problems with him, and not to start on the negative, but my biggest problems with him is the turnover side of it. Just not clean enough ball handling and clean enough, like, just control with the ball that makes me feel like he should be playing point guard. I think maybe 2, but point guard to me scares me at this particular moment. If he changes and his ball handling increases, he's got better ball security, then I'm less concerned. To me, also, I think one of the biggest problems is his inability to blow past defenders. He's a good player, but he cannot beat his guy off the dribble. And that, to me, is going to be a problem league-wise. Defense is getting better because offenses are getting better. So if he can't beat his guy off the dribble, I'm trying to figure out how high can he go? Like, what is his ceiling? What is his upside? And so for me, there's that. And then the 3-point shooting is shaky. I think it's around 32, 30.
31.
Yeah, it's 31.
31.
But
the free throw is phenomenal. So, I'm not totally out on the shot.
Right. And then lastly, just will he be able to navigate? And this to me, and this is just me tying my own basketball philosophy. I'm not passing it to anybody else. But to me, if he can't beat his guy off the dribble, how can he navigate pick and roll? That's just me. I tie those two things together. You have to be able to create the advantages to pick and roll. I don't know if this gets faster, if right now he's working on it. It's just, and we see something completely different. But a player typically at this particular stage is who they were and what we saw in college. So I would love to see him just be so much better at some of the things that I've mentioned here. And then, of course, defensively, I think he's he's okay, could be better defensively. And just being able to stick with his man, I think that his lateral quickness could work a little bit more. And then a lack of explosiveness. Just I need him to explode more. I don't know if you can teach that much. If you have it at this stage, you have it. Typically, it's hard to kind of gain explosiveness, especially now, unless some type of program happens where he's just like constantly working on the pilo to get more explosive. So, sounded like it was a big negative here, but there's some things to me that worry me as far as his ability, point guard wise.
I mean, he's probably one of the toughest evals in this entire class. It's kind of like you look at him, it's like, all right, he does some of this stuff well, but like he's a great passer. He's got the IQ, whatever. She's got a nice floater game. Is that gonna be good enough for him to get NBA minutes? Like, is that gonna really change the game? Him making a nice pocket pass or him just knowing the feel of a system? I don't really think so. Like, the more I've thought about Yaku Shonas, the more I don't like him. And I was going back and forth with him in fears for a while now, just because I just didn't love the way either one fit on an NBA team. But I'm
kind of shocked. Because I'm shocked he's this high on the list, because I think the three of us, we were all lower on him. And then everybody else that we had fill out was like way higher on him. So I'm kind of shocked that he's over Igor, for instance. Like I actually like Igor. I think they're very similar as prospects, and I like Igor a lot better.
I was gonna say him and Igor were the two toughest evals in the class for me, and I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'm not a huge fan of Igor as a prospect. That's probably my most decisive prospect. I think he's a borderline first round pick. That's just me though. But more.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But sticking with Yaku Shonas, I just don't know exactly what type of role he carves out. Like, he's not a terrible off-ball shooter, but is he a guy that's gonna I think he needs a ball in his hands to be somewhat successful in the league. And
can I throw out a comp?
Yeah, do it. All you.
Yeah, Mario Hezonja. So I think he's more of a wing than a guard.
Hezonja was a little bit more physical, though.
A little bit, yeah. And I think he's probably a little bit better of a passer than Hezonja. But I feel like he had the hype of being this top 5 guy, and his body is just like, his physical ability is just not there. And so I think he has confidence. The main worry to me is I think that the statistics are showing that he's not really a point guard, even though he has the passing ability. The statistics are like, he did not have that much usage. He didn't have this insanely high usage, yet he had 3.7 turnovers with, not that high of usage. So I'm a little worried about him as a point guard. I think he's probably a shooting guard. And then if he really is a shooting guard, then how valuable is that skill set as a shooting guard?
Not really. It's weird.
So that's my worry. I still have him 15 because I think you got to swing at it at some point and be like, maybe he puts the things together. Because if he can put that together and actually be a point guard, then you have a very valuable point guard. Because he's a great rebounder for a guard. He does a lot of good things, but it's just like, where do you value the floor? Because I think he has a lot lower floor than someone who can do so many things, you would think.
It's weird. You often don't hear 6'6" point jumbo guards be considered tweeners, and he really is.
But he kind of is.
Like,
it's so weird.
He's a very weird prospect eval, but also you do watch some of the tape and you do watch some of the things he does as a ball handler sometimes, and the way he uses his body. You're like, oh, that's nice. He did a great job of getting this guy on his back to create separation.
Mm-hmm.
But also, how many NBA guards can do that?
I kind of wish he came back one more year, to be completely honest.
I'm gonna use that argument for Igor a little bit later, but like I said, these two guys are similar skill sets. I just think Yaku Shonas has proven it way more.
Igor. Why don't we just go into him?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just
Unless you had something else you wanted to say.
well, all I was gonna say is just I think one of the things for me that I've stated kind of what this looks like. Explosiveness does not mean dunking the ball. Explosiveness means I can get through the defender and finish. He just does not have it. And it's weird because I think I mentioned Jordan and I didn't mean to interrupt, but like his frame to me says athlete, right? Like it says like elite athlete. His usage of his body in the frame is just like, huh? What's happening here?
It's like he doesn't know how to do it. It's very weird. It's like he looks like he should be a better basketball player. I don't
right. Like
it's very wild.
Like even on some, if you've seen any of the tapes, some of the breakaway stuff, I'm like, he's not dunking this ball. Just like you just kind of know it's I shouldn't be able to say that about somebody 6'6", 200 plus. I just expected more explosiveness from his game, especially because at some point some boards had him as high as 6, and I was just like,
I think some guys
top 3. Some people had him over Ace
in the beginning of the season. Beginning of the season, he had unbelievable hype. Like he was like top 3 on some boards.
And then I think he kind of has dropped too far in some places because I saw some places like having him like outside of the first round. It's like whoa, like I don't think we've gotten that bad yet.
No.
So.
I
do think you're trying with him. Yeah, Igor. Which to me, I have them separated by 1 spot. I have Igor 14 and I have Kasparis 15. So like they're just right next to each other to me. I like Igor at the height. I also kind of think that if being a guard doesn't work out for Igor, he can fall back on being a forward.
Strictly 3.
You have to try it. Yeah, strictly a 3. I don't think he can be a 4. But I do think that you have to try him at guard. You're doing yourself a disservice because if he figures out the handle is the main thing to me. If he figures out the handle, then he's a 6'9" point guard who can actually he's the best passer in the draft. But the problem is the handle makes the passing less functional. Because he can't get to the passing because he's struggling with the handle. But I just think there's so many things with him where if he can unlock that handle, because even the shooting looked bad, but he's worked on his shot since like when you were watching his shot at the combine, it looks pretty nice now. So I do think that he's fixed some of his jump shot. So I'm not necessarily believing it as much as the guys who there are actual statistical, backing for them being good shooters, but there's a chance that he might have fixed that shot a little bit. Very low free throw rate, which again, I think comes to the handle. He just he can't get to his spots yet. And if he can figure that out, he's going to be a nasty prospect if he can figure out the handle.
He is for me, he is way too theoretical for me to be high on him. That's my entire thing. I fully believe he's a gifted playmaker and is probably one of the best playmaking talents in this class. But we see it with his court vision, we see it with the variety of passes he makes, the way he controls his body on these passes sometimes. Like I see his hang time, I'm like, whoa, like not a lot of guys can do that at 6'8".
You want to ask him, have you thought about passing to the floor? Like, or something. Right. Like, it's like the hand-eye coordination is there. Like, why is the handle not working?
Right. Like, he does display the ability to understand the spacing and timing of other guys off ball. Yeah. But then after that, everything is just let up with him. And a lot of the hype people would get from him are watching these no context, like pro workouts where he is knocking down these open shots. But it's like NBA game is way more physical, way faster, and a guy's going to be in your face. He didn't do it at college, so is he going to do that in the NBA? I think he needs minimum 3 years of real development to actually be an NBA piece because he really just struggled with the physicality of college basketball. And if you're struggling with the physicality of college basketball, the NBA is going to be a whole different monster. Like it's going to be
the one advantage for him with developing him is he is the kind of prospect that I think you send down to the G League and that's what he needs. Because like a lot a lot of guys need to figure out how to scale down their role. I think he needs more reps as the dude. So
I
the G
agree.
League's actually perfect for him, in my opinion.
I think he's raw, right? Just from the physicality perspective. And to me, I think at his size, I don't know. I think this has a lot maybe to do with feel and handle. Josh Giddey's probably the
yeah.
only other guy who is his height, his size, playmaking chops. But I think Giddey is much better with physicality than Igor. And granted, we're not.
Giddey was much stronger. Also, I think Giddey was a little smaller and more compact.
Right,
which helped him.
Also, and this could
lower
be
center
me,
gravity.
so if I'm wrong, you guys please correct me. It feels like he's still figuring out his body in some plays. Like it's like, dude, you're 6'9". You have a mismatch here. Attack that. And it to me,
he's very much like Poku.
Right. So the word I would say is just he seems unsteady at his ability to get to spots. I think he has the size to get there. He just isn't doing it fast enough. And if he can figure out how to do that faster, the playmaking is going to be off the charts. I think his assist total will go up. I think he does take pretty good care of the ball. Shooting to me is interesting because he's shown the ability to stretch the floor in some cases, and in other cases you're like, huh, what's going on here, sir? You just made an extremely difficult three on this end, and the one that's wide open you're missing. So it's something where I just feel like the hand-eye coordination is definitely there, but I think the mind-body connection is kind of needs to be tweaked a little bit. He's only 19, so I think he has a lot of upside. I'm going back to defense. He has all the tools, in my opinion, to be a good defender. He's 6'9".
Yep.
Just a bit.
His
wingspan is about 6'10". So there's some size there that you can say, hey,
good hand-eye coordination.
Right. We just need you to be a good team defender. Stay with your man, be able to move your feet well. The playmaking is, I think, what he's mostly going to be drafted for. If you're looking for a guy who is a playmaker, then this is it, right? So I think that's what you're drafting him for. Somebody that you can shape into the playmaker you want. To me, he's dropped way down on a lot of boards, similar to Casp. I now, granted, I don't know. I'm not sure why that's the case. Now, some people,
I think it's because teams are just favoring, like, people just favor the two-way forward prospects, because we are seeing how
I also think that
those guys are in the playoffs.
Less guards are needed too in the lottery. If you just look at like what teams are needing, very few teams in the lottery need guards, and so there's only so many.
Right. I think that realistically, draft night, we see him go somewhere between that. Like, I don't think OKC is going to take that a shot at him at 15, and I don't think Orlando would either, because I think Orlando's in desperate need of shooting. I could see him going anywhere from 17 to the end of the first round. Brooklyn has has 3 picks in that range. Utah has a pick. Washington has pick 18. So one of those teams will definitely take a swing on him.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And he'd be good in Brooklyn because Brooklyn needs somebody to be that guy. And they're not necessarily expecting to win next year. So just throw him into the fire. Let him learn.
I think it also depends on who Brooklyn takes with that 8th pick also.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Agreed.
Yeah, if they have fears, then maybe you only do one of those two. Yeah.
And so I'm correct here.
Clayton?
Clayton.
Walter Clayton.
Jr.
Yep.
Yes. I want to start by just saying I would not be surprised if we look at this class in 3 years and Walter Clayton is a top 5 player in the class.
Oh, agreed.
He just has proved it time
legitimate
and
shooter.
time again. He's that guy.
And
the dude
and
can shoot.
Clutch. I think the clutch factor is another thing that there's some things you can teach, there's some things you can't teach. And if you have it, that's it's It's tough. It's tough to say because there are some guys, there are a lot of like boards who are in between on him as far as his positioning, just because I think overall the draft space is strange about guys who do more than 2 years at college. That's a whole other conversation to have. But I think his ability to go from quiet game to we're within 2, we're tied, we won is insane. He makes tough shots, hits tough shots. There are some people who are not a huge fan of guards who live off of a tough shot diet. But to me, if a player shows their ability to take and make big shots and tough shots, that only increases with reps. Like, I think that deepens that people talk about a bag, the ability to go deep in your bag and say, hey, this is something I'm confident in taking. That's not a big deal. That's the kind of guard we're talking about here. Just solid at 6'2". He's almost 200 pounds. Just the ability to get free off of screens and handoffs is something that's impressive to me. I think he was close to 40% at threes, just elite at free throw shooting as well. Intriguing playmaking chops. I think he's more of a secondary playmaker than he is a primary playmaker, but I think a team that drafts him is likely going to want to see what he looks like as a primary playmaker. Active hands as a defender. I do think he's solid because he's solid. Just can play decent defense. The clutch factor kind of falls into this here. The basketball IQ is pretty high, extremely high in my opinion. He doesn't always make the best defensive reads, but his offense to me is what you're drafting him for. He's not a lockdown defender, but I think you're drafting him for the late game stuff, his ability to make decisions with the ball. Jacob, you talked about microwave scores.
He shot 809 threes in college, and he made 39% of them.
And there you go.
It's really, and on free throws, it was 481, and he was 89%. The dude can shoot. There are no questions about his shooting. Now, there are questions about some of the other aspects of his game, but I think he does just enough in the other areas for me to be comfortable with him in the late first.
I agree with that.
That's just where I'm at. We'll get to another short guard who is a shooter later on, who I don't buy some of the other areas of his game as much. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Like, I think you can only, in my opinion, you only make a bet on one of Clayton or Jace Richardson, and I lean Clayton over Jace. So that's where I'm at.
I'm the same way. I would, if I'm Houston at 10, I'm looking at Clayton 100%.
Oh, whoa! I don't know about in the lottery, but
I'm being serious here. I think you really look at him 10 because you look at Van Fleet. He's on that contract year. I know you have Reed Shepard waiting for his moment, but he hasn't really showed it yet. Clayton's a guy that I think in his rookie year, it's like, all right, get out there, make a good decision, and get a tough bucket for us while our other guys are resting. And with guys like Sengun and Thompson who have proven themselves as playmakers, then I think that takes a lot of pressure off of him to create for other guys.
That's true.
And then he can kind of just do his thing off of these like floppy staggered screens and just like run around like a madman with that fast trigger and just hit shots. I really love that.
And with everybody else, he just has to defend just enough there.
Exactly. So
You've
I
got
think
all the
that
other pieces to.
If you're Houston, you seriously look at that. But any
you're
team,
selling me.
I think any team should, like, in that bottom half of the lottery, should really consider just taking him, unless you're Chicago, who just has a million guards.
Just too many guards.
Or even probably not Atlanta either, even though that would be interesting.
He's my dream pickup for Dallas to somehow get back into the draft.
Right.
That's
because you still need a guard.
Exactly. And so he would be the absolute dream to somehow get into Dallas.
I hope his defense, because I think he has the size for it. I think there's defensively he can be a little bit better. There are going to be dampers, and I think there are quite a few people who are scouting him that are damp because of his age. Again, I'm probably an outlier as far as this is concerned. If a player is NBA ready, age doesn't matter to me as much. If
I thought he should have come out last year, and he got better.
If you can produce, then the curve isn't that like it doesn't drop. To me, it goes up. Like you've played against college guys, and now you're going to be able to dedicate all of your time to being a better pro. How does this not work out for this particular prospect? So to me, it just really depends on what this guy looked like coming out of college. With Clayton, national champion. I just don't think he's going to be a bad guard wherever he ends up. I think he just makes really good decisions.
And to me, there is a difference between being an older prospect who is like a guy like Nee Clifford, who isn't that battle tested. But if you look at Clayton's been through March Madness, every game in March Madness this year, for the most part, was down to the nail. That Maryland game, not the Maryland game, the UConn game, my mistake. That Auburn game, and obviously the championship game. I mean, he's just been there before. I think that he's ready for any type of stage.
He's also done this for multiple years in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He was good enough last year to come out and be a second round pick. He came back and he's significantly improved over last year. So just to me, I think that you don't knock the age when he obviously made the right decision. He got so much better. So I don't want to knock the age too much with him.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Let's see here. So next we have probably my favorite card in this class in Nolan Traore. So to me, just a huge fan. His measurements came out recently, and so for me, he's really interesting from the ability to accelerate just off the tape that I've watched. Also, I would say that I've talked about it with Fears. I'm going to talk about it with Nolan here. He's got to put on some strength and some muscle. But overall, dynamic rim finisher, I think he is hovering around 55 to 56%. His three-point shooting is question mark right now. I don't think he's a consistent enough shooter at this particular moment yet.
However, it has improved steadily throughout the year. It keeps getting better throughout the year. And in the playoffs, he's 40% from three, and he's 100% from the line in the playoffs. So he has steadily throughout the year gotten better at shooting.
He's to me one of the top 5 playmakers in this draft class. This is me saying it. I'm not saying this is anyone else's consensus. I think he just has the vision. Pretty good vision.
He's almost too willing of a passer. That's actually his problem.
Very pass first.
He wants to force every pass. And so sometimes he will pass and the pass that it's not actually an open pass. And so that's his weakness.
Some of that might be with his age, right? He's 18, right? So, for his poise at this stage, I think eventually someone's going to say, hey, look, take this read here next time versus this one. And I think from what I understand, he seems like a really open guy to just sponge. He's in a state of just trying to gather as much information and process it as quick as possible. So to me, I think, his playmaking vision is what you're drafting him for. His defense, I need him to. This is where the physicality and the strength comes. He can't die on screens as much. Just has to be able to fight over a little bit more, and maybe communicate a little bit more on that side. His motor, he seems to play with a lot of energy, and he's. I think some of that tapers off a little bit defensively, but I think that with more reps, especially because he's been playing pro, that increases and accelerates his development. I want to say that to me, his ceiling is pretty high. Now, am I going to state what that ceiling is? No, because I'm not going to be quoted on anything crazy. But I will say he has afterwards. I will say he has a high ceiling in the ability, just playmaking wise, motor wise. I think the shooting can be fixed, and then also I think furthermore, I think one of the biggest things to me is you mentioned the forcing of passes. The one point I think his assist turnover ratio is pretty good.
I've got it right here.
But he's going to need to kind of trim that in even further, especially against NBA defensive guards, especially as a playmaker. And that's one of the things that teams like to do right now is if you're especially a pass first playmaking guard, they want to limit those options, those lanes as much as possible.
So it's 2.5 turnovers to 5.1 assists for the regular season, but in the playoffs, it's 7 assists to 3.5 turnovers. Like 7 assists a game for an 18-year-old in a European playoffs. That's Luka stuff. That's what it is.
And I think that just gets better. What were your thoughts? I'm high on him, as you can obviously see, but
it's a mixed bag just because I do question whether or not he'll be able to score off the dribble at an NBA level. I think he's a guy that definitely needs a year or two developing. But like the passing is, I mean, I watched the tape and some of the passing, like the live dribble passes that he's making, are just simply incredible. Like I wrote down, like he does have a variety of like wrap passes that I've seen that I'm like, whoa. And like Jordan, I think you mentioned earlier that sometimes he is he wants to pass too much and forces the difficult passes, but he's made those passes before. Like he's capable of making those passes.
Yep.
So there is a reason why he's doing that. And I also do think he would be a little bit an NBA kind of scaled down from that regard. He wouldn't be making riskier passes because minutes are so rare in the NBA. I do also question how he'll fare on the defensive end, just because I feel like he'll be probably better just matching up with guards, pressuring them full court, rather than just being like a switch, like half-court defender.
Agreed.
I think he's going to guard more wings, actually, just based off of his size. I don't think you want him on like De'Aaron Fox or something.
Right. Yeah, true.
So, but that's actually some of the appeal to me, though, is I think you can hide him defensively in a lot more places. And even who you're hiding him on, like at a certain point, he's going to win that defensive matchup. Like if you can get him on a low enough offensive guy, he's going to win that defensive matchup. And so I actually like it. I kind of view him as like, this is real old. I don't even know if either of you guys are old enough to remember this guy play, but Jalen Rose, back before he was on ESPN, was like, and he was a one-time All-Star in Chicago. Like that hybrid of being guard and wing, where you could kind of do both, and depending on what the team needed at that day, I think that's something that he can do. And so I'm pretty interested in him as a prospect. So,
and I was gonna answer this question real quick, because to me, and I've said this, and anybody who's seen me tweet about it, to me, this is the guard at 20. If the Heat are picking now, granted, do I think he drops to 20? No, because somebody's gonna go, actually, I like his passing. Let's bring him here.
Oh man, he'd kill it in Miami, because they would fix so many of the problem. Like so many of the red flags just automatically don't become red flags with Miami's coaching staff.
Right. And so
he also gets to play at like a slower pace. Like it's a really good fit.
Yeah. That's a fantastic fit.
That's a perfect fit in my opinion. So if he can fall to 20, you fix the point guard problem in the future. This is a future pick. You're picking this for now, where he gets to kind of garner some of his abilities and kind of learn from a lot of players that are going to help him defensively. And then in the future, as he shapes into and gets towards his prime, I think this is just from 18 to 25, there's so much space for him to just get better, and which is why I'm so high on him. So that to me is where this is where the Heat should make the pick as far as guard is concerned. The next guard here, I'm impressed with, but also have questions about, and that's Jace Richardson. Jordan, you want to take this one?
Okay, so I have like a whole page on notes on Jace, because that's the one that I get the most pushback in in like on Twitter or even on my Substack. Like the most pushback that I get is having Jace too low. But in the last 25 years, a player 6'3" drafted in the first round but weren't drafted as point guards are Jared McCain, 16 in a very weak draft, Nick Smith Jr. at 27, Bones Highland at 26, Tyrese Maxey at 21, who became a point guard, Zaire Smith at 16, who didn't even finish his rookie contract, Ben McLemore at 7, incredibly disappointing career, CJ McCollum became a point guard, and you could argue was already a point guard, and then kind of shifted over to the 2-guard role because of Dame. Dion Waiters at 3rd pick, bust. Jimmer Fredette, bust at 10. Avery Bradley at 19. Roddy B at 25, bust. Eric Gordon at 7. Jared Bayless, JJ Redick, then both of them at 11. Ben Gordon at 3rd, and then Leandro Barbosa at 28th. If we're talking about someone who did not become a point guard, or I'm pretty sure Eric Gordon grew because he's now listed at 6'5", not 6'3", but he was listed at 6'3". So if we're talking about people who didn't either grow or become a point guard, JJ Redick, Ben Gordon, Leandro Barbosa, and Avery Bradley are the only successful ones for first-round picks. And the last of those was in 2011. It's been a long time since someone of this archetype has successfully made it in the NBA. People want to say Donovan Mitchell. Well, Donovan Mitchell has become a lead guard. If you really think that Jace Richardson is going to jump up that good to be an MVP candidate, that's what we're talking about. Donovan Mitchell is on a completely different level. He's been All NBA first team 3 times now, 3 or 4 times. I don't see that for Jace. I just don't. The margins for error at that size are so small, and it's like if you took away Davion Mitchell's ability to run the point. What are we doing here? It starts to be very, very difficult. He's a great shooter. He's okay on assist to turnover ratio, but he is not a point guard. He is not a point guard, and it makes it very difficult if you're not a point guard to be that height in the NBA. And so that's where I'm at. I think he's a 2nd-round prospect. I actually have him lower on the board than we have him here. He's 43rd on my board. I think in the 2nd round, that's when you start to say, okay, I'm risking it. Let's see if that shooting translates to be a bench player, to be a bench guard. But I'm not wanting to draft somebody who I know can't play in the playoffs. I'm not wanting to draft him in the 1st round. So that's where I'm at. I'll let you guys rebuttal.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think I have him much higher. I probably have him late 20s as compared to 2nd round, just because I think the fact that he is already a high-level shooter, so good off ball, and probably is a natural connective piece, makes him intriguing, and he just does have that natural IQ and knowing where to be on the court. But then again, my big thing again is being 6'2", 6'1". Was it 6 foot without shoes?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, that's a big no-no, especially when you're a guy that can't really create on his own. He's not going to be a guy like Brunson, who's pretty small, but able to hit you with a barrage of moves, use his body, and finish off 2 feet at the rim. He's just not that type of guy. And then as an off-ball cutter, he's not ultra.
And Brunson isn't as blind.
Exactly.
When a teammate's open, Brunson gets them the ball.
Exactly.
He's not like Jace. There are so many open teammates in scoring positions that he just does not see.
Mm-hmm.
Too passive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the playmaking, you can't. If you're drafting him, at, I agree with both of you, because I guess to me, and Jacob, I'll let you finish. If you're drafting him at point guard, then you're like, what can he shoot? Yes, I do think he plays a little bit bigger.
I agree. He can shoot.
I do think he has shown the ability to get to the rim, especially for now. If we're talking about his size, he has shown the ability to get to the rim. But I don't think you can play him at shooting guard. The measurements, the physicals, kind of shrunk what you can play him as. And there's only a few guys that you can say at a certain height that you would play at shooting guard, and that's just because of their ability to handle the ball. And Jacob, I'll pass it back to you, but I just don't know what do you do here? I'm higher than second round for sure.
Now I'll give some positives after this because I don't want to just totally dunk on the guy because there are some positives.
No, yeah. In my eyes, it's kind of like if you're taking a guy to be a connective piece, why not take the flyer on the 6'8", 6'9", hyper athletic guy who showed that maybe he can shoot from three, but already has a base frame that is playable in the playoffs. To me, that provides much more value than a 6'1" guy who he is a good shooter, but outside of that, and he is good off ball, he's not really going to provide much.
Good free throw shooter for sure. Like I think he shoots free throws well. Confident player. I do think one of the things that I was most excited with is that he does compete through screens, doesn't get blown off, does kind of try to stay with his man as much as possible. He's extremely competitive, and I think that just has to do with just how he's made up. I'm worried that his floor is 3-and-D, maybe. Like I'm not sure what to.
And who's he D'ing up? That's the problem. He can only D up one position. That's the problem. And it's that's really hard. Like every 3-and-D person guards multiple positions.
And unless you're really strong, right? Like you just have the strength to guard up, right? And it makes your ability to to be versatile higher. It really is to be seen. I don't know. I'm concerned a little bit. I do think he's a good prospect. He could surprise us all and just be completely different than what we saw.
Yeah.
I do think he's efficient from shooting, and again,
he wasn't like a super high turnover guy either.
No,
like so it's not like maybe
this guy either, and that's
so maybe Izzo. Because Izzo, only played him off the bench for so long, and so maybe he just thought I got to score every time I touch the ball because this is the only time I'm going to get to touch the ball, and maybe he does have that passing in him, and we just didn't get to see it. Like maybe there are. I think that there are also places
back and
where
watched his high school tape. He did not. I don't think he had that passing then either.
I don't either. I don't. But also, his brother was with him in high school, and his brother's like just a much better prospect. So.
Right.
Yeah, I think you kind of wanted the ball in his brother's hand. But to me, if you put him in, like, if LA could somehow get him, I think he's excellent fit next to Luka because he can guard the ones, and then you let him play off ball, and Luka's going to find that dude for shots. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can find another tall playmaker, Indiana, he'd have to come off the bench because he's not better than Nembhard. Indiana would be a fit. Charlotte would be a fit. Obviously, you don't want to do that with the high pick in Charlotte, but I
think Orlando
lower pick. Orlando, you put him next to Suggs and Paolo and Franz, who they do the ball handling. So there are places for him where I could see a first round pick working out, but just on a generic team, he is not a first round pick. And so that's where I'm saying that's why I have him as a second rounder.
Well, this next guard is probably the most interesting of the guards here as far as just like evaluating what his game is going to be. I've heard so many different kinds of comps for him. Now, granted, one of the comps that I think he could be close to, I'll state later, but Ben Saraf is our next guard, and I don't know if Jacob or Jordan want to take this one, but
I know.
Yeah.
To me, he's the biggest boom or bust potential guy here. Like if everything works out, he's going to be a fantastic player. Because he tries on defense, he does all these different things. He's playing for Ulm in the playoffs. That's a big deal for a kid this young to be playing in the playoffs. That doesn't happen normally in Europe. And it's weird that Ulm has two of them. And so and they're both really making it, The 3 shooting is very worrisome. It's not the shooting that worries me. It's the amount of shots. Like, he only shot 45 all year.
I think we
I think we lost Jordan for a
lost
second.
Jordan there for a second.
Am I back?
Yeah.
There you are. All right, great.
Okay. So I said the shooting, he only shot 45 threes. That's worrisome. And then he only shot 50 free throws. I really thought he shot more free throws just watching the tape. I'm kind of shocked that he did not draw more fouls because he has a decent handle and he gets into the lane. So I'm a little surprised at how few free throws it is. I didn't expect him to be a high free throw guy, but I'm really shocked at how little he had. But I do think, he shows some instincts on steals. I don't think he's a 0 on defense. I think he's shown pretty decent passing. I don't think he's an actual point guard. I think he's a shooting guard, but he can get other teammates involved. The other fear is that the shooting got worse in the playoffs. He's like the opposite of Trey, or like he started bad and got worse. Traore, started bad and got significantly better as the season goes on. He's the exact opposite. So, that's all I have on him. So,
yeah, the question with him is I think he does a lot of stuff pretty well. I don't think he does anything super well. So if you're not going to excel at one skill, and I don't think he has a micro skill that really just pops off the table, then it's kind of like, okay, what's really the worth in drafting this guy? Probably you draft him to be a role player, 7th or 8th man off the bench, who can come in and give you good minutes with his IQ, make smart passes. I think the jumper is a little bit awkward. I know he's a lefty. I think he does. I feel like he does something weird with his feet when he kicks back one of his feet when he jumps off the shot. So that's a little wonky to me. He probably just acts as a secondary creator off the bench that will just be making smart passes. He's probably an average athlete as well. I don't really see him standing out on that end of the floor. I think his driving gravity is probably his most intriguing skill, to be honest. Just his ability to get inside the paint and kind of read the collapses. I think that's probably the best thing he does. But again, I don't think it's well enough for him to carve out a serious NBA role.
Now, the funny thing is, I mentioned that he had an interesting comp. And for a lot of people, what his comp has been is Goran Dragic. Now,
that's actually not the one I've heard most. So that's
the one I've heard, and maybe you guys have heard some other ones. My concern is I think people don't remember how crafty and how much footwork Goran Dragic has or had.
Also, Goran Dragic is shooting more than 50 free throws.
Correct. And just because he was crafty around the rim, he was able to.
Well, he's also going to take the he loved contact.
Yeah, Dragic was very flexible with his body. I feel like his hip mobility was very, very good, and Saraf does not have that.
Doesn't rebound well at this level yet. It has to be seen. 6'6" at point guard to me is interesting. Granted, I think any team is going to take a swing on a guard who's above 6'4", point guard. It's just what it's been trending. You got Shea, you have LaMelo Ball, you got a lot of guards. You got Cade Cunningham, just point guards that are big in frame. I do think I'm wondering about what's going to happen physicality wise. He's going to need to adjust to that quickly. I do think, to me though, he might 6-man. I'm not sure yet. That really is to be seen. I'm intrigued to see what his pacing is like against NBA defense. I think his vision is one of the things. Again, this is another guard where his vision is what you're drafting him for. Just sees the floor really, really well. Granted, again, processing for me is something that doesn't maybe get talked about as much as far as the draft scenario. I think we talk about it quite a few, and there's some other places that do, but the processing speed, playmaking wise, and being able to manipulate defenses is something that has to happen with your lead guard or a point guard. And so if he's able to make those reads fast And fast doesn't mean rushed and unstable, but fast as in I saw my teammate cutting, I made the play quickly, and I'm able to make the ability to make the pass and make an advantage for that is something that will have to be seen. So I guess once the playoffs kind of wrap up, where do I see him going? That's really difficult because there are some people who had him at 8 at one point during the year, and I think he's between to me right now he's 10. There's 10 and then as low as 28. That's to me where like that's just kind of why he's been so intriguing to scout for. You don't know exactly where he could end up and what team is going to need his services now.
I think he's a draft and stash guy. So I actually think he's probably a second rounder because you're drafting him to keep him over in Europe. And going back to the comps that you said, so the one you see all the time that I just totally vehemently despise is Manu. He's not Manu.
No. Wow.
Like people I don't know who started that Manu comp, but they should be publicly flogged because people like jumped on that. And so you see it in a lot of different websites that have Manu as his comp. He's not Manu.
That is wild.
I think to me, he reminds me a lot of Josh Giddey, but with less passing, which is a little worrisome because that's like Giddey's thing is the passing. And so I'm not saying he's a bad passer, but he's just like, he's not Giddey level of vision. I will say this applies to Traore as well. In Europe, the floor is less spread. So I actually think they will have a better time getting assists in the NBA than they did in Europe. Now, that being said, it's harder to score around the rim in the NBA than it is in Europe. So it's much easier to score around the rim in Europe. So I do think that being a struggle for him also is another red flag. So if you can't do it in Europe, I'm not sure you can do it in the NBA.
Yeah, I think Saraf is probably the perfect middleman for like the separation of guards in this class. I feel like you have the first 9 guys, then you have Saraf comes in probably end of first round, early second, and then you kind of start talking about Mark Sears, Elijah Martin, Hunter Salas, those type of guys. So I kind of view.
So I actually have Salas over him.
Oh,
Salas
really?
is the only one in my first round that was not on our top 10.
Right.
So, but I also have, I have 2 guys out of my top 10. So I actually only have 9 first round guys. So,
right.
But I really think that Salas is a good, I know he can't shoot very, very well. I know the shooting's very inconsistent, but he does everything else. And I want the everything else. I think you figure out the shooting off the bench.
I thought he could have came out last year. I thought he should. He probably should.
I think he probably cost himself some money going back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And
because I don't think he's going to be picked in the first round, but I have a first round grade on him.
Do you guys? And this is kind of slightly off, but do you guys have Cedric ahead of Cedric Coward? Do you have him ahead of Saraf? Guard-wise?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Well,
but I don't have him as a guard. I have him as a wing.
I think from what we saw from Coward this year is more like he uses power more. So I thought of him as like kind of like an off triple power wing.
Got it.
So I didn't include him in the Google form when making it. I could totally see him how someone sees him as a guard, but I do think in the NBA he'll be playing a wing just because
he's
how long he is. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Well, guys,
the only other guard that I really think that we probably should have mentioned that didn't get mentioned is Cam Jones from Marquette. And so I do think that we need to give him a little shout out. And I would also say rising up my board is Tyrese Proctor. But we talked about him during our sleepers, so I'm not going to worry about that too much.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to know what we thought about Proctor, we already talked about him. So go find the sleepers one.
And we also have Drake Powell as a wing as well.
Yes.
Yeah, Powell's definitely a wing in my eyes.
Okay. Well, look, guys, we talked about our top 10 guards in this draft class. For those who showed some interest and stuck around to hear us chat, thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to be working on wings and bigs next, so look out for that. Excited for the wings. This class is filled.
This is a great wing class.
I love wings, man. They're just the best.
But
They're probably the toughest. They're probably the toughest evaluation because they're all just so close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But that should be a fun episode. That should be a lot of debate.
But thanks for tuning in to Draft Stack. Catch you later. Peace.
Peace.